Okay, let's unpack this. Today, we are strapping in for a deep dive into the opening chapters of Josephine Cox's novel, Girl on the Platform.
Hmm.
And if you think this is just a gentle story about finding love, you are, you're fundamentally misunderstanding the mission here.
Right. It's so much more complicated than that.
Absolutely. Our mission today is to analyze a spectacular disaster, a truly disastrous boys' night out back in August 2007, and show how that very failure was the necessary catalyst for one character's obsessive, meticulously planned, and, well, ultimately manipulative path to what he believes is true love.
It's a study in extremes, isn't it?
Yeah.
We're tracking a narrative that swings so violently between, total chaos and cold calculation.
Yes.
Our sources chronicle events spanning just 6 weeks, starting with this frantic dash to catch a train in Woburn Sands through the utter humiliation of a London trip, and concluding with a surprise engagement built entirely on deception. It's a fascinating, if morally complex, character journey for Pete, our protagonist.
The core players are Pete and Mark. Now, Pete is deeply unhappy. He's desperate for a change after yet another breakup with his girlfriend, Kathy.
Right, they, again, is doing a lot of work there.
It really is. So he's the one who organizes this London trip, using tickets to the hit musical Joseph. A gift from his dad is the hook. He sees this as an essential escape from the cycle. Work, home, tea, pub. That cycle is it's suffocating him.
And Mark, his best mate, well, he really doesn't need much encouragement, though his idea of excitement is, let's say, far less structured than Pete's.
It's a polite way of putting it.
Mark's initial vision of a good night out is basically the pub. Maybe with a bit of casual romance on the side. Pete is the one attempting to inject some, culture and sophistication into Mark's life, and in doing so, he forces both of them onto a path of just unforeseen disaster.
Okay, so let's nail down that opening scene. We're in Woburn Sands, August 2007. There is this immediate physical and psychological contrast between the two men. Pete is dressed up, trying to look sharp new jeans, black leather jacket. Mark has also made an effort, but the text kind of makes fun of them, describing his skinny jeans making his size 10 feet look like barges.
Yeah, it's a lighthearted jab.
But that little jab, it masks a much deeper, more serious division, which is Mark's financial and psychological vulnerability.
We have to start with the elephant in the room here. Mark's destructive impulsivity, it's rooted in his gambling problem.
Oh, absolutely.
The narrative is very clear on this. Mark is addicted to betting on horses. He says he's trying to control it, but this trip to London immediately exposes his utter failure in that regard.
The preparation for a major night out in the capital involves Mark being financially destitute before they even reach Milton Keynes. It's staggering. After he subtracts his board payment to his mother, a tenner he owes his father, and the necessary train and taxi fare for the evening, how much money does he actually have left for food, drinks, club entry in London?
He has only about 20 quid.
20 quid.
It's astounding. We're talking about a man who just received his wages that very day.
That's the part that gets me.
It tells you everything about the speed and severity of his addiction. He has spent almost his entire paycheck betting on horses, including losing heavily on a horse with the ironically hopeful name, Highway to Heaven.
The irony is just crushing, isn't it? His addiction is sending him down a highway to ruin, not paradise.
And Mark knows it. He confesses he must give it up or he'll be in real trouble. He compares his addiction to others who are addicted to, quote, drink and cigarettes or women. He uses this self-awareness as a kind of shield, but it doesn't change the outcome one bit.
Exactly. Self-awareness without action is just a rationalization, isn't it?
Yeah.
And this situation, it forces Pete to step fully into the role of the pragmatic, responsible, and frankly, the judgmental friend.
And Pete's support, though, it's a fascinating mix. It's genuine loyalty on one hand and absolute boundary setting on the other.
We see that transactional dynamic immediately. Pete explicitly warns Mark about the cycle of debt and disappointment that gambling creates. He draws a very firm line saying, "I will not lend you my hard-earned money to waste." That's the boundary.
But then the generosity follows, and this is crucial to understanding Pete's character. He is capable of true kindness, but it is so often framed in terms of control.
How so?
While he offers genuine assistance, if I can help in any way, you've only to ask. I'll keep your wages for you if you like. He promises to divert Mark from the bookies and assures him, wherever I am, I'll be there for you.
So it's not just no, it's no, but here's my alternative plan for your life.
Precisely. This establishes Pete as the anchor, the financially and morally disciplined one. He is the planner, the holder of wages, the provider of rescue. This dynamic is foundational because it shows that even when he's focused on someone else's well-being, Pete operates from a position of control and strategy.
And that strategic outlook is completely absent in the immediate next action.
Oh, completely.
Despite Pete being the disciplined one, they're both caught up in the rush of escape. The text describes Pete's frustration with the grinding monotony of life. Work, home, tea, pub.
It's a litany of boredom.
And they realize they're desperately late for the 6:30 train to Milton Keynes. They set off running, narrowly avoiding catastrophe. They scramble aboard just as the gates close and the train is about to pull out.
That last-minute scramble, just barely making it perfectly symbolizes the entire boys' night out.
Yes.
It is ill-prepared, hasty, and built on nervous energy and chaotic execution. Mark collapses into the seat, totally relieved, stating, "Another minute and we would never have made it." It's a metaphor for their whole approach to the London trip, a chaotic, unorganized bid for freedom.
So they're breathless, they're running on nervous energy, and they finally settle down. But the distraction of the journey is immediately overpowered by a singular visual cue.
A girl on the opposite platform.
Girl on the opposite platform. Pete sees her, and even as the train pulls away, he is instantly captivated, murmuring a desire to get to know her.
The author gives us a very deliberate description here, focusing on her specific presentation of sorrow. She's in her early 20s, long, dark hair obscuring part of her face, sitting on a bench. She has a small, shapely figure, a lovely full mouth, and pretty eyes.
But that's not what gets him, is it?
Not at all. The dominant feature, the magnet for Pete, is that she looks sad, though, or unhappy.
She appears utterly self-contained, just looking down, deep in thought. She only checks the monitor once, briefly. Pete is drawn to an endearing quality she possesses, noting that while he'd known prettier girls, this is different. This quality, this sadness, it captivates him instantly. His heart immediately turns somersaults.
We've seen this kind of immediate, visceral reaction in romantic fiction before, but here, the narrative uses the friend's reactions to distinguish the nature of Pete's connection.
Ah, yes.
Mark?
Mark, ever the crude materialist, immediately makes these insensitive jokes rooted in his own reality. He assumes her sadness must be transactional. She's probably broke, like me, or she's addicted to backing horses as well. He even taps on the window as the train pulls away, shouting this completely inappropriate invitation.
Hey, I'll cheer you up if you want. You and me could go to the races.
I mean, come on.
Mark's reaction is purely self-centered. It's dismissive of any genuine distress. Pete's reaction, by contrast, is internal and profound. The connection he feels is so immediate that it forces him to expose a foundational trauma he hasn't fully processed in 7 years.
He confides in Mark, explaining that the girl sort of reminds me of myself.
And that's the key line.
It prompts the full revelation of his past heartbreak. And this wasn't just a breakup. This was a deep betrayal that fundamentally scarred his perception of women and relationships.
Let's really unpack the betrayal of Claire because it's brutal. 7 years ago, Pete was working at Jason's car parts warehouse. He met Claire, described as bright, funny, and genuine. He fell utterly in love, worshipped her, he bought her things, spent all his money trying to please her. He believed it was real.
And the discovery was just humiliating. It was public. At Barney's club, Claire gets drunk and disappears. When Pete searches for her, he finds her in the cloakrooms with Jack from the warehouse, someone Pete considered a good friend.
And the deception wasn't just infidelity, it was a conspiracy.
That is the truly damaging part, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Claire and Jack had been together before she even started working at the warehouse. Their entire relationship with Pete was an elaborate, cruel joke. They had been actively milking him for every penny I'd got and were laughing at him behind his back.
For an 18-year-old, that doesn't just damage your confidence. It embeds a deep-seated distrust and shame. Pete's reaction was decisive. He walked away from both the job and the girl for a clean sheet and a lesson learned, but clearly the lesson wasn't learned. It was just repressed.
Exactly. And that 7-year-old shame is now projected onto this girl on the platform. Pete declares he recognizes her wounded look, kind of far away, not really caring.
It's the look of someone who has suffered and maybe chosen emotional isolation as a defense mechanism. He sees a kindred spirit.
But is he seeing a kindred spirit? Or is he attempting to rewrite history by saving a version of his past self? That's the real question. Mark, predictably, finds this whole preoccupation strange, dismissing the girl as possibly a witch.
But Pete is past caring about Mark's skepticism or rationality at this point. He makes an almost fateful declaration, confirming his complete obsessive intent. I'm going to see her again.
And this isn't a casual hope, oh, I hope I see her again. It's a statement of mission. Everything that follows, including the spectacular disaster in London, is just an obstacle to be overcome before he can begin that mission.
That declaration truly sets the stage. The failed London trip, which we're about to analyze, has to be seen as the chaotic preamble that solidifies Pete's need for control and meticulous planning when it comes to his real goal, finding the girl.
So Pete has just committed himself to a lifelong quest based on a 2-second sighting.
Right.
But first, they have to survive the night they actually planned. The original logistics seemed simple. Change at Milton Keynes, 7:30 to Euston, taxi to the Adelphi Theater for Joseph, and then clubbing in Soho.
And Mark, ever the enthusiast for immediate gratification, tries to skip the cultural aspect entirely.
Of course he does.
He wants to maximize drinking and clubbing time. But Pete insists, honoring his father, who provided the tickets and wanted them to have a genuinely good night out that included, some culture.
But their budget is a massive constraint thanks to Mark's gambling, so they need cheap lodging. And the taxi driver, a classic London intermediary, unwittingly sends them straight into the path of disaster.
By recommending his sister's guest house near Soho.
This is where the narrative shifts fully into this absurd high comedy thanks to the introduction of Layla, the landlady.
Oh, Layla.
The driver's description is vital. He calls her the youngest of 5 siblings, but the fieriest, thanks to her Italian blood. And the truly alarming anecdote, she once bit off a part of one of their ears during a fight with some East End kids.
That immediately establishes her as a non-nonsense, dangerous presence.
It's not a subtle character introduction.
Not at all. When she appears, she is indeed formidable, strikingly beautiful with wild, dark hair, possessing a strong Italian accent. But her initial smile vanishes the moment she sees the 2 young men. Mark, instantly smitten, is rendered stammering and weak, wishing he'd worn better clothes.
Layla immediately establishes the parameters of their stay with a list of house rules so hilariously specific, they tell you everything you need to know about her previous clientele and her level of absolute control.
Let's linger on these rules because they are just brilliant examples of comedic specificity she demands. No shouting or fighting, no stealing towels or loo rolls, and the classic specific ones.
No peeing in the hand basin.
No peeing in the hand basin.
And absolutely no being sick on the carpets.
The no peeing in the hand basin rule in particular suggests her experience with drunk, desperate young men is extensive and deeply unpleasant.
It raises the question, what level of chaos must she have endured to make that a written rule? It instantly elevates her from stern landlady to battle-hardened matriarch.
And then, the rule that crushes their metropolitan dreams.
Yeah.
The door is locked at 1 minute past midnight.
The fatal blow.
And they are absolutely not allowed to bring women back here. The curfew is just. It's the end of their clubbing ambitions.
Mark protests fiercely, arguing that London clubs don't even get going until midnight. He realizes they'd have to leave the club by 11:30 p.m. just to make it back. Pete tries to reason with Layla, but she is utterly immovable.
She throws their limited budget right back at them, doesn't she? She argues that her guest house is the only thing they can afford near Soho, and that finding an early morning taxi or another affordable hotel is out of the question.
Pete, being the pragmatist, swallows his pride and rationalizes staying. He agrees with Layla, calculating the high cost of taxis and expensive hotels. But the humiliation isn't over yet.
Oh, no.
She demands payment in advance, stating flatly, "Your word is no good to me. Your word will not pay my bills."
Ouch. Mark is offended, shaking with frustration, yet still oddly smitten, taking refuge behind Pete. He is clearly intimidated by her power and beauty, a lethal combination that leads directly to his downfall.
And the narrative takes a dark, humorous turn right here. As the boys climb the steep, narrow stairs, Mark even compares the climb to Everest. Layla remains at the bottom, listening.
And Mark, believing he is out of earshot, starts boasting. Big mistake.
Huge. He praises her perfect figure, her long, thick hair, her mouth to die for, and then the specific arrogant line that triggers her wrath. He asserts that she would never bite his ear off because she'd be far too busy checking out my body.
And she hears every word.
Every single word. We are given access to her inner monologue, her eyes becoming alight with mischief. She murmurs that she thinks she needs to teach him a lesson for talking about me like that, when you will not forget in a hurry.
Chilling.
It's crucial. The revenge is calculated, swift, and completely hidden from Mark.
It provides the perfect structural irony, really. Pete and Mark came to London seeking freedom, pleasure, and the high life, Yet they are immediately trapped by the rules of this formidable Italian matriarch and Mark's own colossal hubris. The disaster clock is now officially ticking.
The evening begins on a high note, ironically.
He does, which is funny.
Despite the restrictive accommodation, they go to the Joseph musical at the Adelphi Theater, and Mark, the skeptic, is genuinely captivated. He agrees with Pete that it was amazing. For a brief moment, Pete's plan for a cultural escape is actually working.
But once the show is over, the planning fails catastrophically. They realize they know nothing about London nightlife. They dismiss several clubs. One's too scruffy, one's too threatening, one's too quiet, before finally just grabbing a taxi.
And the driver takes them to Andy's place, described as cheap and popular with good music, which immediately signals a lower quality venue.
It's a bit of a red flag.
And the driver gives them the disclaimer. Occasionally there are unsavory characters lurking about and street women looking for business, though they usually managed. It's a risk-reward calculation based purely on budget.
Once inside, the friends completely diverge. Mark is in full predatory mode, boasting about his luck, spotting an auburn-haired girl and confidently declaring, "She's mine." His mission is quick. Shallow gratification.
Pete, meanwhile, is completely distracted. He is still lost in the image of the sad girl on the platform.
He can't shake it.
He can't, forcing Mark to comment that she must be a witch who has put Pete under a spell because he's so preoccupied with someone he barely saw. Pete even wonders internally if Mark is right. Maybe she really is a witch.
Distracted, Pete wanders to the far end of the bar. This wandering, motivated by his obsessive thoughts, is what leads him to the next disaster. He is interrupted by a soft voice. "I hope you're not talking about me."
And this is Maggie, the landlord's daughter. She is tall, willowy, dressed in white jeans and a dark fitted top. Pete describes her eyes as melting right into his. He admits he's thinking about just some girl. But Maggie quickly draws the conversation to herself.
She tells him she doesn't have a boyfriend and suggests he can talk to her if he needs a friend.
That word friend is doing a lot of heavy lifting.
A lot. The language is seductive, but deliberately vague. She draws him off his stool and leads him through a discreet door to the private quarters.
Meanwhile, on the dance floor, Mark is making progress with his girl, who happens to be the auburn-haired girl Pete had been observing, and she gives Mark a chilling warning about Maggie. She whispers, "I hear Maggie has a huge appetite, if you know what I mean."
And Mark, high on the promise of his own potential success, completely misinterprets this.
Completely. He just assumes it will take Pete's mind off the platform girl.
So Mark's own night hits a snag when his temporary date's massive, muscular boyfriend arrives, looking for a confrontation. Mark attempts a hasty, quiet exit. But before the violence can escalate, they hear an almighty noise from overhead screaming, furniture being thrown.
It's Maggie! And the barman rushes to the private quarters yelling, "Quick, she's at it again!"
At it again.
Mark, now in full panic mode, rushes up the stairs, only to witness the full, horrific, humiliating climax of Pete's disastrous encounter.
The scene is just utter pandemonium. Pete is handcuffed to the bed, his shirt is shredded, and his trousers are around his ankles. He's screaming, "She's a bloody maniac!"
Yeah.
This isn't just awkward, it's physical violation and complete public humiliation.
The barman violently wrenches Maggie off Pete, chastising her about men not enjoying the things you do. Pete is thrown across the room. The barman, now assisted by another bouncer, possibly the boyfriend Mark had just been avoiding, grabs the two friends.
They are manhandled by the scruff of the neck and sent crashing headfirst down the stairs, landing in this painful heap. And the final warning is delivered with absolute certainty. Never show their faces there again, or they will be locked in, and Maggie will be let loose on them.
The boys' night out has ended in absolute physical and psychological defeat. Pete's attempts at spontaneity and normal clubbing have resulted in trauma.
The taxi ride back to Layla's guest house must have been excruciating.
Well, you can just imagine. Pete is physically bruised, he's hobbling, and he's utterly traumatized. He declares himself finished with women forever. The irony is just palpable. The man who just tried to save another woman is now a victim himself.
Mark, however, is hysterical with laughter.
Of course he is.
He finds the sight of Pete in handcuffs absolutely hilarious, demonstrating his remarkable ability to dismiss immediate peril in favor of comedic relief.
Pete, deeply ashamed, forces Mark to promise, and promise properly, never to tell a soul back home about Mad Maggie. This promise is vital for Pete's reputation in Woburn Sands and signals how seriously Pete views the trauma. He must salvage his image of discipline and control.
When they arrive back at the guest house, Layla is waiting up, confirming she is the ultimate source of intelligence.
She knows everything.
She mockingly asks if Pete had met Mad Maggie, offering a wicked smile and claiming she could have warned him that Maggie has a bad reputation for bringing the men down to size. It's an assertion of her superior knowledge and control over the city's dangers.
Pete, still trying to maintain an air of respectability, denies knowing anyone called Mad Maggie and tries to head straight upstairs. But Mark, still utterly smitten by the Italian goddess, lingers. And this sets up Mark's delusional interlude.
The next morning, Mark is just bouncing off the walls. He's claiming he had an amazing, passionate visitor in the early hours, Layla. He asserts she slid into his bed, and they made love in a rush of passion, concluding, "It was something else, I'm telling you."
And Pete, still skeptical but seeking a plausible explanation, suggests Mark must have been dreaming, or perhaps Layla was sleepwalking and wouldn't remember a thing.
Which is a kind way of putting it.
Very. However, at breakfast, Mark's fantasy is shattered.
When Mark whispers to Layla, asking if he will see her again, she replies with utter coldness, treating him like a complete stranger. She confirms she is selling up and moving to Italy, reinforcing the finality of their separation.
Mark is heartbroken and confused, asking Pete, "Do you think it was a dream after all?" Pete's rationalization, dreaming, or sleepwalking is the only thing that prevents Mark from accepting the truth that he was merely repulsive to her.
But the true, absolute, final revenge of Layla is yet to be revealed. They reach Euston Station, which is heaving with people. Pete notices something odd. Everyone seems to be in an unusually good mood, and many people smile and snigger as they pass.
And Mark, lost in his delusional memory of a heavenly night with Layla, is completely oblivious to the spectacle he has become. It's only when Pete is boarding the train that he sees the devastating message written clearly in Tipp-Ex on the back of Mark's black jacket.
The message is a masterpiece of cruel efficiency, isn't it? Layla's final payment for his arrogance. "You're a lousy lover, you snore like a pig. I hope I never see you again."
Pete's initial reaction is hysterical laughter, but then his conscience kicks in. Should he tell Mark? He fights the urge and decides not to say anything, thus making Pete complicit in the escalation of Mark's humiliation.
Right. And Mark endures the entire train journey home, cheerfully rattling on about the beautiful Layla and how cold she must be because she's already moving to Italy.
The public torture just continues on their home platform. Strangers snigger. A large woman waddles by and tells Mark, "I dare say you'll learn as you get older."
A group of teenage girls runs past, calling him a loser and making a V sign. Mark is completely baffled, trying to rationalize it as people having a bad experience and disliking all men.
The moment of discovery is delayed until they reach Mark's home. Pete makes a fast retreat, and minutes later, he hears the furious shouting of Mark from the doorstep, followed by the hysterical laughter of Mark's family after they read Layla's devastating review.
And Mark's angry voice echoes down the street, shouting, "I won't forgive you for this." But Pete knows better. The London trip, intended as a release, resulted in total personal disaster for both men. Pete's physical trauma and Mark's social annihilation. And this failure is what allows Pete to shift his energy fully to his strategic obsession.
The contrast is just so stark. After the chaos of London, Pete channels his energy into a singular laser focus on the girl on the platform. In the following weeks, Pete is physically and mentally consumed. The text says he is sickening for the girl, unable to sleep or eat properly. His mind is wandering constantly at work.
His distraction becomes so visible that his father intervenes, worried Pete might have missed a promotion. And this is a crucial detail because it establishes the true cost of Pete's obsession. Pete is usually highly ambitious. He's been working towards involvement in the company's new, highly profitable country home department.
And we need to understand why that promotion matters. This country home department offers massive commission. The narrative notes that selling just £500,000 country property could yield the same commission as selling 3 or 4 small townhouses.
Wow.
It represents financial stability, success, and a defined future.
And Pete confesses he's not distracted by money. He's in love with the sad, lovely girl he saw once. His father, seeing Pete pacing the bedroom floor nearly bare, offers wisdom rooted in tradition.
The father encourages him to move past his shyness with the maxim, "Faint heart never won fair lady."
A classic.
He urges Pete to talk to her, arguing that even rejection is better than the crippling uncertainty Pete is currently enduring. At least he'll know, and he can stop driving himself crazy.
This advice is the final push. Pete resolves, "I don't even care if it makes me late for work. What's a promotion compared to knowing her?" This is the true measure of his obsession. He is willing to sacrifice a highly profitable career path, financial security, for the chance to connect with a stranger.
And the breakthrough happens on a Monday morning. Pete is already resigned to disappointment, but then he spots her running onto his platform with a friend named Liz. She looks lovely, dressed in a blue jacket and dark skirt, carrying a black handbag with a pink and blue flower.
Pete acts on pure instinct, but that instinct is strategic. When the train stops, he doesn't approach her directly. Instead, he moves immediately to the seat directly behind the two girls. His intention is not conversation. It is intelligence gathering.
Yeah.
He is now operating as an investigator, prioritizing information over engagement.
This eavesdropping scene is the most critical turning point in the whole story. The girls, oblivious, begin talking, and Pete collects 4 essential clues, the holy grail of information, that allows him to pivot from admirer to strategic operator.
Let's break them down. Clue 1. The brother. Pete first hears her say, "I miss him so much." His immediate jealous conclusion is that she's pining for the man he saw her hug off the train the week before.
Right, the supposed rival.
Exactly. But then her friend asks if it helped when her brother came down to stay the week before, clarifying the man's identity. Pete is overjoyed. The rival was simply her brother. This eliminates a massive variable.
Clue 2. The name. Then comes the immediate confirmation of her identity. Her friend addresses her directly, asking, "Can I ask you something, Mary?"
He's got it.
Pete feels like he's won the lottery. He now has a name, Mary, and he thinks the name suited her like no other could. Identity confirmed.
Clue 3. The loss. Mary then reveals the profound source of her sadness, which Pete had initially interpreted as romantic heartbreak. She explains she is mourning the death of her dog, Jasper.
And not just any dog. Jasper was a border terrier she had had from a puppy who was her best friend for 12 years.
This is a breakthrough of monumental importance. Her sorrow is specific, deep, and deeply vulnerable. She cries, noting that she gets home and he's not there, his little tail wagging. Her friend asks if another puppy, another border terrier like Jasper, would help, but Mary shakes her head, saying she misses him too much to think of replacing him.
And Pete now knows the exact emotional deficit he needs to fill and the exact tool required, a male border terrier puppy.
And finally, clue 4. The location. As the girls shift topics to work, Pete gets a final, essential piece of the puzzle. Mary works at Sally Parker's flower shop, and crucially, the shop is currently struggling because of specific local conditions.
The building work going on right outside the Harper Center in Bedford, causing dust problems.
That level of detail, the name of the shop, the town, and the specific building work near a known landmark, gives Pete absolute certainty of location. He has her name, her specific psychological wound, the required cure, and her address.
As the train stops at Bletchley, Pete gets off, his mind buzzing with an idea that completely jettisons common sense and honesty. His obsession has crystallized into a strategic deception.
Pete's plan is now instant and audacious. All the chaos of the London trip has been replaced by cold, calculated efficiency. His priority is no longer his job or his reputation, but executing the deception. He needs a border terrier puppy, and he needs it immediately.
First, the logistics. His company car is in for service until Friday, and he needs reliable transportation now to execute this plan. He must quickly fabricate a business appointment in Leighton Buzzard, where he happens to know there is a pet shop.
He immediately engages in transactional behavior, bribing his colleague, Tim. The bribe is precise. Lunch and a bottle of red wine to take home in exchange for the use of Tim's car for an hour at most. Tim is delighted, agrees instantly, and Pete races out without another word, demonstrating his singular focus.
He drives to the Leighton Buzzard pet shop, frantic with excitement. He doesn't browse. He yells out the breed, "Border Terrier!" The assistant checks the computer and locates a breeder with only 2 puppies left, a bitch and a dog.
And Pete makes the correct strategic deduction. Since Mary had referred to her beloved deceased dog Jasper as him, she would want a male dog. I'll take the dog. He expedites the process, paying the £5 extra for Friday pickup, refusing to wait for standard delivery. Every action is precise and dictated by the intelligence he gathered.
On Friday, the execution phase begins. Pete collects his newly serviced company car and then the puppy. The puppy is described in detail, the sweetest little puppy, dark brown with floppy ears and big wet eyes. Pete is so completely invested in this fabricated reality that he buys a complete, tender selection of accessories. A basket, leash, collar, a coat, everything the assistant recommends.
He drives to Bedford, locating Sally Parker's flower shop easily, thanks to the massive building work going on right outside the Harper Center. He parks, takes the puppy, and whispers to him that they're going to find him a pretty new owner and a warm, loving home.
The deception is now ready for deployment. He enters the shop, and Mary is not immediately visible, which allows Pete to establish his noble cover story with a kindly-looking colleague.
Right, he sets the stage. Pete adopts the persona of the Good Samaritan, explaining that he just found a puppy abandoned and is looking for a rescue center. This eliminates all suspicion. He's presented as a caring man who just happened upon the perfect animal, and then Mary appears from the back room at the sound of his voice.
And the reaction is perfect validation for Pete's strategy. Mary instantly gasps, "He's just like Jasper!" Her eyes immediately fill with tears of recognition. Pete opens his jacket to reveal the tiny bundle of fur.
Mary draws the puppy into her arms, laughing and crying simultaneously, the perfect emotional cocktail. Pete, seizing the moment, holds her as she cries onto his jacket. The narrative pauses for Pete's internal triumph. He had her in his arms, the girl on the platform in his arms. His planned, strategic quest is realized.
Mary, desperate, instantly begs Pete to let her keep the puppy, promising him a good home and more love than he can handle. In her gratitude and emotional state, she offers him her address so he can visit and ensure she is caring for the puppy correctly. Pete, of course, allows her to keep him, securing their relationship under the guise of responsibility.
That very evening, Pete goes back to Mary's little cottage with her. They sit, drinking coffee, watching the tiny puppy play with Jasper's old toys. Mary tells Pete, "You don't know how happy you've made me."
The connection is immediate and overwhelming. Pete feels the strong urge to kiss her, but he wisely controls his impulse, deciding to take it steady and avoid rushing it, learning the lesson from his previous failures in London. He prioritizes the longevity of this relationship over immediate gratification.
The relationship progresses with surprising speed, validated by the foundational emotional connection built on the puppy. They date, share a first kiss that is heaven, and just 6 weeks from the day the puppy brought them together, Pete asks Mary to marry him.
And she says yes, his life is complete. She comments on the serendipity, telling him, "Wasn't it strange how the puppy brought us together?" Pete is thrilled, but blushes, acutely aware of the deep layer of deception involved in their miraculous meeting.
He makes a solemn internal vow that he will tell her the truth about how he deceived her before they get married. But for now, he is hopelessly in love and enjoying the bliss of his meticulously engineered happiness.
And finally, the London disasters return to make an unexpected appearance at the engagement party.
I love this part.
Mark is chosen as best man, and he arrives with a surprise date, Layla, the fierce matriarch. Mark reveals she had written back to him, and he has now supposedly forgiven her for the devastating Tipex note.
Mark, unbowed by previous humiliation and fueled by Layla's unexpected return, asserts his new confidence. "Don't you worry about me. She's met her match. You see before you a man who is quite capable of handling his woman."
And the narrative ends with a powerful note of dramatic irony. Layla, proving she hasn't changed, challenges him instantly, her dark, sultry voice echoing across the room. "I hope you're not talking about me."
And Mark, instantly cowed, reverts to form, offering a cheeky smile and asking her to dance. The happy, controlled ending for Pete is juxtaposed with the continuation of chaotic, humiliating instability for Mark. The distinction between destructive impulsivity and constructive calculation is confirmed. What an incredible contrast. We traveled from a boys' night out that resulted in handcuffs, Tipex humiliation, and deep physical trauma, leading directly to a proposal 6 weeks later. The fundamental mechanism of Pete's success was the replacement of chaos with strategy.
The failure in London Mark's gambling, Pete's attack by Mad Maggie, Mark's social annihilation by Layla, were all necessary distractions. They solidified Pete's belief that success, especially romantic success, could not be achieved through impulsive social chaos, but only through focused, methodical, almost investigative effort.
Pete is now hopelessly in love, standing on the foundation of a magnificent and compassionate lie. He recognized her wounded spirit, identified the specific cure, and used the intelligence he gathered to construct the perfect narrative for their meeting.
Which brings us to our final provocative thought for you, the learner, to consider as you reflect on this narrative. Pete's path to marriage was dependent on absolute deception, the fabrication of an abandoned puppy, and a noble encounter. We have to ask, was Pete's happiness built on a noble act of empathy, a clever cure for loneliness that simply required a white lie?
Or was it entirely dependent on a fundamental act of calculated manipulation that permanently alters the ethical foundation of their relationship? Is a positive, happy outcome sufficient justification for the manipulative means used to achieve it? That's the question Pete has to answer before the wedding.